Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video of intermittent fasting for beginners. Now, the real question that you need to ask yourself before we dive a little bit more into the introduction, and I will introduce myself as well, is are you committed to this? The idea of working with me as a mentor or coach is that I want you to succeed and I want to push you to understand more about yourself. And that means that we're not going to be restraining ourselves to the physical body and the diet and the rules, but we're going to go more into the connection between the mind, body, spirit. In other words, I want you to learn more about yourself, about your beliefs, emotions, about your programs, about your rituals, about why you feel the way that you feel. We're going to dive into your emotional eating patterns, and we're going to dive into your relationships and social pressure that might arise to change the new habit that we're trying to integrate. So the whole idea of taking this online program, we usually take just a week, but you can do it over a course of a few weeks. You can test it out for a few days. I'm going to give you the whole advantages, disadvantages later on in the program. Before we move on, if you don't know me at all, my name is Ray. I'm a fasting expert. I wrote 2 books. I have more than 100,000 followers on social media. What I do is I train people in mind over body, and I train people's belief system in changing things like their diet, things like taking yourself to the limits of what you're capable of doing. I've been on television multiple times. Events. I teach all over the world. Every year I travel for at least 4 or 5 different destinations. Some countries I always come back to. I teach mostly in the United States, in Europe, in Australia. I highly recommend that you put an emphasis on what it is that you want to get out of it, because the intention is going to change everything. You're going to see once you start intermittent fasting, whether it is after you watch these videos or whether you've practiced it in the past, that once you put an intention, then the body has absolutely no way to object. We come from a dynasty of religions that all of them had incorporated fasting rituals inside of them. And fasting is something that's very, very natural to the body. It's not natural to human beings today, but it's very natural for the body. For example, any animal, once it gets sick, it stops eating. Human beings do this as well, but we don't actually listen to the body. In other words, your grandma, your mom, they come and say, oh, you're sick, let me make you some chicken soup, and then you eat it, but you're disgusted by it, you repel it, and that's your intuition, but you don't do it. You think that you need it. The body actually says, no, I've had enough, thank you very much. When you're in tune with your body and you listen to the body, what you're going to get is less food, less carbs especially, more fasting or longer fasting periods. When you listen to the body will tell you when to stop eating, because everybody overeats. Now, what you see today in society is a program of society. By scientific research, every decade, means every 10 years, your metabolism changes by only 2%. Why do people get fat when they pass 30 and 40 and 50? You got married, so you're not thinking about the body too much. You don't exercise as much. Testosterone levels decrease. Who your friends are, who your family is. When you look at them, you can actually understand why your body is the way that it is right now. So fasting can be incorporated into any lifestyle. That the beautiful thing when we're talking about intermittent fasting is that you don't have to give up on other things. This is not just like a diet. Because you have that prolonged window of fasting, the body's detoxifying during that time, and it continues the cleanse from the night, and you allow it to be hydrated with water and with other liquids for a beneficial period of time, then with time it begins burning more fat than if you had the same amount of calories every day, but 3 meals or 3 meals and 2 small courses like everybody does. In other words, they tested scientifically caloric restriction with alternating and caloric restriction without and normal feeding. And what they found is that when you just stop, you take the same amount of calories, exactly the same amount of calories in mammals, and you distribute it differently. In other words, you say, okay, I'm going to eat everything that I'm going to eat within a window of time. That cleansing time allows for more weight loss, hormonal balance, it allows an increase in the growth hormone. There's so many things, good things that happen. That clarity of mind that you're going to experience, because when the body burns carbs to create energy, it has more waste, and the process itself is heavier on your body, and therefore you do not have that clarity. You've heard that burning fat actually has less or reduced amount of wastage, and therefore it's easier on the body, and that's why people do the keto. But that's what they get that clarity of mind, and that's the important part. So we're actually running more on ketones in the end of the fast, before the eating window. I want you to understand that fasting is something that happened in the history of humanity. When we were hunters-gatherers and there was no food, then we hunted every couple of days and we fasted the rest of the time. A lot of people still fast. You know, the older generations had that ritual of fasting once a week. Jesus used to fast, Muhammad used to fast. Within Judaism, there's 4 embedded fasts. But nowadays, people look at fasting and they think that it's not about connecting with clarity, but they think about it more like suffering, like I'm straining or I'm not allowing myself. And this is the point of the program, of the belief system that we actually need to work with. In the beginning, you just need to create that new program, and I'm going to help you build that new program, but you need to have it long enough momentum in that program. Think about your habit and your belief and your program as a spring, a metal spring that's now resting. You need to pull on that spring by changing for a long enough duration of time in order to break the old pattern. When you only go as far as what you wanted to go, you always went back. But if you go further than what you wanted to go, then going back, you will go to where you actually wanted to reach from the beginning. So for example, if you want to exercise 2 times a week, then maybe for a month or even 2 months, it's better that you exercise 3 or 4 times a week. In other words, you strive for the stars, you're getting to the moon, and you're all happy. And this is something that you need to think about. Your intention is to eventually have a lifestyle of intermittent fasting of 18-6 or 16-8. Then why don't you do 2 weeks of 24? Or why don't you try the 1 meal a day approach, the 23-1 even? You need to think about all these things and you need to set a right intention. I can tell you my recommendation for you is to go at least 2 weeks minimum of intermittent fasting, different modalities that we're going to discuss, see which one fits your style a little bit more, see how you face emotional eating patterns during the weekend, see how you face your spouse, your colleagues, your friends, your children, yourself, your thoughts. You're going to get all the benefits within 3 or 4 days. That's the time that it takes the body to acclimate to this new type of program or to this new type of habit. Most of the program or most of the videos that you're going to watch, what we're going to do is we're going to ask a question and then I'm going to try to answer it as thoroughly as I can. These questions were actually written during Q&A with my students, but this one is written specifically for intermittent fasting and taken from my experience. I have more than 12 or 13 years of experience as a fasting mentor, a fasting coach. And you have to be more emotionally stable for that. In the intermittent fasting, think about it like your first step if you're actually a beginner. This course specifically is for beginners. So I want you to take as much as you can, practice, see if you incorporate it, see if you like it, and then consider moving to the next steps for you. You know, I believe that we're almost all of the time working on ourselves and changing and developing. So the first question that came up is this another diet? Ask yourself, is it a diet? And ask yourself what the word diet means for you. Ask yourself how many times you've tried doing different diets. Ask yourself why you failed being persistent and consistent with most of the diets that you've tried, and try to understand that intermittent fasting is not a diet, it's a way of life that gives you all the benefits without dealing calories and counting them and thinking about what you're going to eat. I'm not saying you're going to eat junk food all of the time, but I am saying that the structure here, the eating and fasting window, in that window of eating, you can eat whatever you want. I'm not saying eat pizza all day. Your stomach is going to eventually shrink, you're going to test your limits, but eventually your body is going to say, look, I feel cleaner now, please give me something healthier. I believe in the flexibility of 80% versus 20%. You do not want to go for the 100%. The 100% means I'm only eating healthy, I'm never cheating, I always persist with my window, you know, the 24 or whatever it is. First time they're going to have a crack in your system, you're going to go into emotional eating. And emotional eating means that you're going to probably binge because you have prevented yourself and you've created resistances that you have not dealt with. And then on any sign of struggle, distressful day, loneliness, boredom, they're all going to be triggers for that special cupboard that you have in the kitchen, okay? The first thing that you go into the kitchen out of the ritual, you open that specific cupboard, you're not looking for an apple, you're looking for something to put a bandage on emotions. So the 80-20% means 80% of the time be good, be healthy, stick to the rules that you created. 20% of the time allow yourself that flexibility. If you have a 24 program, for example, and there's a wedding coming, or there's an event, or there's Christmas or a holiday or something special, then it's okay. You don't have to oblige by that rule, but the day after, go back to your old habits. We're trying to create a habit that's long enough to stick, to understand more. What I'm talking about is not only your physical, I'm talking about your spiritual aspects, and I'm talking about your mind and your belief system. You have to train yourself to become more and more aware of these things. Another question is, how can intermittent fasting fit into a busy lifestyle? And this I love. I'm going on an interview in a week on TV. And in the beginning, they wanted to interview me as a breatharian. And then I said, listen guys, I want to start teaching the masses and I want to start teaching intermittent fasting. So they told me, okay, meet us after a fast. So I said, okay, 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, like how long do you want the fast to be? And they said, no, just 1 day. So 1 day is easy. It's really easy. And the question is like, how can I incorporate intermittent fasting into my busy lifestyle? So it's quite the opposite. You don't have breakfast, you don't have lunch, or you have a very late lunch, depending on your window. You have more energy. Your insulin levels are very, very balanced. And what do I mean? Did you notice that after lunch, especially if you're working in an office, everybody's productivity declines immediately? And the reason for that is that it's heavy. The digestive system takes about between 20 to 25% of the total energy of the body. That's a lot of energy. So when you don't have that, or you're drinking juice or a smoothie instead of eating something heavy, then you have a lot of energy to be focused. Most of that energy again goes back to our brain and to our mind. So you have that additional time, you have that additional energy, you have that additional clarity. What you should be asking yourself is, how do I build the momentum, and how do I build the new program, and how do I become more aware in order for me to not break and go back into old patterns? So don't think about it as a diet, and don't think about it as something strict. Think about it, especially for now, especially if you're just beginning, think about it as an experiment. Your entire life, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of life, you have been told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. You have been told that 2 liters of water is mandatory for every human being. 3 days without water and food, you're going to die. Break all of those paradigms. Break them. They're completely wrong. Experience on your own body and tell yourself, you know something, I'm just trying something new for a couple of weeks. Let me be open-minded about it. Let me be open-hearted about it, and let me see what happens. And be true with yourself. And what you're going to get is, you're going to get more clarity. You're going to have more time to yourself. You're going to be amazed, because after 2 or 3 days of acclimating to this change, you're going to be able to work out, and you're going to be sleeping better. Like, everything kind of changes, but you have to start. And you can't be your own inner rebel. You can't watch these videos just to say, I watched. The point here is to try. Between listening and understanding the mind, then you have the actual experience, and then that experience is felt by the body. And then the body can intuitively tell you, listen, this is actually very, very good for me. So that's what I want you to think, and that's what I want you to deal with throughout this entire program. You can watch the whole videos right now, but it's better to take them one at a time. It's even better to experience a little bit and then go back to the right title. If you're experiencing it, with a diet and failed, tips and advice I'm going to give you here are going to help you throughout your entire life and not just switching into intermittent fasting. And for me as the guide, that's the only thing I want. Even if you watch this whole thing and you've tried intermittent fasting, thank you very much for choosing to work with me on this, and let's move on to the next video.